Today, the nation remembers Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. right here in Memphis. A huge event is planned at the historic Mason Temple, the world headquarters of the Church of God in Christ.
Gospel great Rance will be there, and MLK artist Stephon Ferguson, special guest of the event. Welcome. How are you?
What a gentleman.
Always good to see you.
Thank
It's been a while.
It is wonderful to be back.
Well, very good to have you
Three
back.
is our friend.
Oh, we like hearing that. We like hearing you say that for sure. Let's start with you, though, Mr. Allen. What does this day mean to you, and what should it mean to other Americans as well, MLK Day?
Black or white?
MLK Day, for me, and I like that terminology, black or white, celebrates a man whose efforts have moved us from where we were to where we are. And it's like, I'm not even concerned so much about, you know, the future and what needs to be done. Anytime I get discouraged or wonder, you know, how we're doing, I just take a look back and see where I've come from. And Dr. King in his lifetime was a man that was a mover of people. He took people and brought them together, both black and white, and any other color. He brought us all together and made us understand that how we were a greater machine if we worked together.
It brought anyone together who
Yes.
believes that until man's law corresponds with God's law, we're not doing well. Stephon, when did you were the only person licensed, first of all, to, what's the correct verb, perform Martin Luther King's speeches? Or, because it almost, I don't know, I don't want to trivialize it. Is perform the right
How would
verb?
you say it?
I would say perform in a sense to reinvigorate the dream, what Dr. King stood for. And that's what I do, working with the philosophy of Dr. King and what he stood for.
You remind us of what his dream was in a way that really brings him back to life, yes?
Yes.
And in doing that, is there a certain, Stephon, sense of responsibility that goes with that as well?
There is certainly a sense of responsibility to even try to emulate Martin Luther King Jr. and the work that he did as it relates to bringing those words back. Because many people, Dick Gregory had mentioned to me one day, he said, you know, 50% of the people in the United States today were not even living when Dr. King delivered that speech. 75% of people in the world were not living.
Wow.
So when they hear you today, in a sense, they're hearing Dr. King for the first time.
Is that somewhat intimidating for an artist, because it's such a huge endeavor?
It can be, but as Dr. King used his faith to help with support what he did, that's what we do. So it truly helps. We use that as the foundation.
That's awesome.
Rance Allen, as we think about this generation who was not around during the time when Dr. King lived, how should they view or attempt to view the importance of his words and his actions and maybe their own community service today?
I think that most of us are happy that we know futuristic things, but I heard somebody say that you cannot figure out where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And Dr. King, he's a source, his life was a source of information that I believe will propel our efforts, our ideas, all to a higher level if we know who he was and how he thought and so on.
As we put on the screen the information for today's event in just a couple of hours, would you bless us with just a bit of the mountaintop speech as we go to break?
A bit of the mountaintop speech.
A tiny bit.
You know, just a tiny bit. And this is the beginning, because most people hear the end of the speech.
Okay.
But Dr. King begins that speech, and you know, if I was standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of taking a kind of general and panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now. And the Almighty said to me, Dr. King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt, and I would watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through the wilderness and on toward the promised land. But in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move on by Greece and take my mind to Mount Olympus. And I would see Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assemble around the Parthenon. And then he goes on to continue the speech. And so
that is amazing. I had my eyes closed for a minute and I felt as if Dr. King was right here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
What a gift. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
So much.